Chapter 17. Back at the borrowed flat, he dropped his guitar by the couch, kicked off his boots, and collapsed onto the threadbare cushions. His laptop was open on the table. Out of instinct, or maybe curiosity, he refreshed Reddit. A thread was trending under local music tags. Who was that guy at the Hollow Lantern open mic tonight? The top comment, someone posted a clip. Voice sounds like Velvet Mask. Same rasp, same drop in the bridge. Check the timestamp 204. Sounds just like him. Another reply. Velvet Mask is sexier though. This guy looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. River barked a dry laugh. Fair. He closed the laptop. His chest still ached from the night before, from the silence in Kate's voice, the curve of her retreat. But at least he could sleep knowing he hadn't reached for a drink. Not tonight. Royalty checks from streaming would hit the account tomorrow. Not much, but enough. Still, the number didn't mean anything compared to the empty half of the bed that used to be filled with her warmth and the scent of rosewater shampoo. The next morning, the sun cut through the blinds like a scalpel. River rubbed the sleep from his eyes and stumbled to the kettle. His phone, miraculously repaired, buzzed once. A message from Kate. He opened it, still half dreaming. Image attachment, a screen grab, low-res, pixelated. Him, outside the bar, hugging Dana. A streetlight caught them in partial silhouette, just enough to show his hand on her back, just enough to look intimate. Below it, Kate's message. Ireland said I should check your location. I didn't want to. But this? Were you out with someone else after everything? River's stomach dropped. He stared at the picture. The timestamp, the way it could look if you didn't know the context. He typed quickly. Kate, no, that's the bartender. Dana. She gave me water. I didn't drink. I didn't sleep with anyone. I didn't even know someone took a photo. Another pause. Then, so you're just casually hugging women outside bars now? While I'm at home trying to figure out if I can trust you? River's fingers hovered above the keyboard. His pulse thundered in his ears. He replied, you told me to leave. I did. I've been trying to keep it together. I played a song in an open mic, that's all it was. I was falling apart, Kate. She was kind, that's it. No response. He stared at the screen, helpless, then added, please, don't let Ireland twist this too. Don't let her win. The typing bubble appeared, then it disappeared, then it appeared again. Then nothing. River set the phone down and waited for the silence to break. She vanished like the tide, slow, quiet, leaving behind the wreckage of what once was shoreline. Kate didn't block him. That would have been easier, cleaner. She just stopped replying, stopped reading, stopped reaching. For days, River stared at his phone like it might flinch under the weight of his grief. He refreshed her profile photo just to see if she changed it. A shared post about the boys' school, a photo of her garden blooming, but she didn't respond. Not to his calls, not to his texts, not even to the messages where he begged. He reread old texts, played voice memos she'd sent about the boys, about lavender blooming in the windowsill. Her voice was still sunshine in his chest even now, especially now. He messaged her every morning, like prayer. I'm sorry. That photo wasn't what it looked like. I would have called you if I thought you'd pick up. You told me to go, but I never stopped being yours. And when the words didn't feel enough, he sent her music. A 30-second voice clip of a new song. A verse he wrote in the rain. A photo of his guitar resting in his lap like a broken promise. But she never read them. Not one. It wasn't anger. That's what terrified him. It was indifference. In the mirror, he didn't recognize the man staring back. His curls were longer now, unkempt and flat from sleeping on the couch. Shadows bloomed beneath his eyes like bruises. He was still technically functioning, attending his internship shifts at the hospital, studying for his boards at night. But it felt like he was acting out the life of a man who had already died and hadn't been told yet. No one checked in anymore. Not his classmates, not his ex-colleagues. Kate had been his gravity, and without her, even time moved strangely. The only place that felt real anymore was the Hollow Lantern. He posted the first clip without thinking. A guitar riff, half finished. A whisper of lyrics about a woman who loved a man until he broke like porcelain under pressure. He didn't caption it, just uploaded and closed the app. The reaction was immediate. The Velvet Mask fan account lit up. A Reddit thread emerged the same night. Velvet's back? He disappeared for months and now he's bleeding on Instagram. Something happened. You can feel it. Voice sounds lower, sadder, like heavier. River didn't respond, but the comments stuck with him. They watched too closely, heard too much. They always had. He kept posting, short clips, demos recorded on his phone, lyrics scrawled in the notes app, never his face, only shadows. His music had always been anonymous, but now it felt more like confession. Every song sounded more like River and less like The Mask, which terrified him, because that meant it was finally him bleeding through. He wrote about Kate, about betrayal, about living in a country where no one knew his middle name and the weather bit into his skin like regret. He wrote about the boys, about butterflies in jars, about the sick, aching shape of love that survived but couldn't thrive. And for every video he uploaded, there were 100 messages he didn't send to Kate, to himself, to the version of him that once believed a love like this could save him. He started sleeping with his guitar on the couch, afraid he'd wake up and forget how to play. The hollow lantern smelled like warmth and rain and someone else's memories. It had become River's second home, or maybe his first, now that his actual flat felt like borrowed space and a borrowed life. Dana always had his water waiting, no questions, no pressure. Just the same raised eyebrow every time he walked in, and that soft, habitual joke our local ghost returns. He plays once or twice a week now. Never the same song twice, never the full versions of the ones people asked for, and never by name. "You gonna tell us who you are this time?" a girl asked one Thursday, her voice teasing, curious. "No," River said simply. "Names ruin things. It wasn't a performance. Not really. Not anymore." It was released. An exhale. A place to put the feelings that didn't belong in his chest. He'd play until his fingertips burned, then sit at the corner of the bar and stare at the reflection in his water glass. The version of himself he could barely reconcile. A stranger with too long hair, too pale skin, a hitch in his eyebrow from an old scar, and a look in his eyes like he was constantly somewhere else. Velvet Mask had been armor once. Now, it was the only skin that didn't itch. Still, no one knew, not yet, but whispers grew. A couple of kids posted a clip from the back of the bar. Grainy and shaky, but unmistakable. The Reddit thread exploded again. Voice matches 99%. That's a Velvet Mask, but he looks too sad. Not hot enough, honestly. Could just be a fan doing covers. No way he's busking in a pub. I'd believe it. Sounds like Reef with a guitar. River read it all, laughed once, bitterly. He wasn't handsome enough to be a pop star. And now, apparently, not even sad enough to be believed. Ireland's threats became more specific. "You got fans again. You're in the spotlight, even if you're hiding. Do you want me to pull the curtain off? You're a public figure. I wonder how fast the licensing board drops you if they see what's behind the mask. 10 grand, end of the month. Or I leak everything. Photos, recordings. That video of you leaving Kate's flat. The hospital won't touch you after that." River didn't respond. He'd stopped 2 weeks ago. But she kept writing, keep pushing. Sometimes she'd twist the knife deeper. "Kate still hasn't replied to you, has she? You know she asked me about the photo again. She doesn't believe." Maybe she never really did. He'd reread those at night, curled up on the couch with his guitar and his aching throat. He couldn't even tell what hurt anymore. The threats, or the fact that some part of him believed her. He had 3,200 pounds in his account. His royalty checks were steady, but not fast enough, not enough to make her disappear. And part of him hated himself for even considering paying her, because he knew the moment he did, she'd only ask for more. And worse, she'd own part of his story. The one he was finally brave enough to say aloud, so he kept posting, kept performing. Every song was a scream into the void, and every night he came home to silence from the one person he was still singing for. The phone rang at 2:14 a.m. River was awake already, lying on the couch in the dark, one hand resting on his chest, like he was trying to hold himself in place. When he saw her name on the screen, his heart stuttered, hope flickering to life like a spark too close to gasoline. He answered without thinking. "Kate?" Her voice came fast, sharp, too loud in the silence. "I don't even know who you are anymore." His breath caught. "Kate, wait. Ireland told me everything, River," she snapped. "The pills, the fake prescriptions, the stories. You lied. You always lie. Even when you think you're protecting me." "I didn't lie," he said quickly. Maybe I didn't tell you everything, but I never what?" She cut in. "Never thought I could handle the truth. Never thought I'd find out. You think being sad and talented gives you a free pass to bleed on everyone and never take responsibility for the mess you make?" River stood up, pacing. His hands trembled. "You don't know what she's doing to me, Kate. You don't know what I've survived. I'm tired of your survival," she said, her voice cracking with exhaustion. "It's always survival with you. Always trauma. Always another ghost, another wound, another scar." River stopped moving. "She said you got back into that truck willingly. That you were drunk too. That you lied about everything after the wreck." His chest hollowed. "That's not true," he whispered. Then tell me what it is, she demanded. He sat slowly on the floor, back to the wall. The darkness was too quiet now, so he went back, let himself drown. He was 15. The air smelled like beer and burnt rubber. The street lamp flickered. Joshua's voice, slurred, cruel, echoed against the pub's brick wall. Get in the goddamn truck. No. River's arms were crossed tight over his chest, his backpack still slung over one shoulder. His voice was shaking. We're not supposed to see you anymore, Adam said. I don't give a shit what your adoptive daddy said, Joshua snarled, stepping forward. You're still my blood. River took a step back. That's when Joshua grabbed him by the throat, slammed him into the passenger side, threw the door open, tossed him in like a sack of trash. His head hit the dashboard. The seatbelt twisted across his chest as he gasped. Then Joshua was gone, inside the bar. River sat there in the truck for 40 minutes. The men stumbling past the window looked in and sneered. One slapped the hood, another banged on the glass and told him to stop staring, even though River's head was turned away. He didn't cry. He just watched the windshield fog. Joshua returned, half drunk, barely standing. I'll drive, River said. Just let me... You can't even see over the wheel, bitch, Joshua laughed, hauling himself into the driver's side. The truck peeled off the curb. It didn't take long. The sound of tires skidding, a scream of metal, the crunch of bone and glass, a tree trunk, a scream, not River's. Joshua fled. River couldn't move. Blood poured into his mouth. Something in his leg snapped. His hands were covered in pieces of the windshield. The world smelled like iron and gasoline and fear. He tasted metal. He never saw Joshua again, just the back of his head as he ran. River was shaking on the floor now. His voice was a whisper. I didn't lie to you. I never lied. I didn't want to tell you that story because I didn't want to relive it. I was a kid, Kate. A kid. She was quiet for a moment, then said coldly, You were a kid then, but you're a man now. A man still making every single thing about his pain. He said nothing. I'm exhausted, River, she continued. Every time I open the door to you, another trauma walks in. Every conversation turns into a vomit of confessions. Every silence is filled with your ghosts. I can't raise 2 children and also keep dragging your broken pieces behind me. I never asked you to. No, but you let me. You made me believe I could fix you. You let me think love was enough to pull you through. He was crying now, quietly. Love you, he whispered. Kate's voice was soft, tired, not angry anymore, just done, I know. But love without healing is just codependent, and I'm tired of being the strong one in your story. The line went quiet. River held the phone to his ear long after it died, and still he whispered, I'm not broken, I'm just not whole yet. But she was already gone. After the call, River didn't move. He stayed on the floor until the room cooled, until his limbs ached with stiffness and sorrow, till even the shadows seemed to give up watching him. He'd always thought the worst part of the wreck was the crash, the noise, the pain, the way everything had gone still too fast, but that wasn't true. The worst part came after the blood dried in the corners of his mouth, after he woke up in the hospital with IVs in both arms and no one sitting beside him. After the doctors came in and asked about the man who drove, he said he didn't remember because he was afraid they wouldn't believe him anyway. He did remember. He remembered everything. He remembered the taste of metal, the pounding headache that wouldn't go away for weeks, the shattered bone in his leg, the pins they had to put in, the scar on his side where the glass tore him open. But that wasn't the pain that stayed. What stayed was waking up and realizing he'd let Joshua back in. After everything, after Adam had warned him, after Vera had cried when she found out, he'd answered that text. After years of building himself into someone else, someone clean, someone safe, someone not made from the same filth as his biological family, he let the door open just a crack, and a hurricane walked through. He hated himself for that, hated that he wanted a connection so badly he'd risked his life to feel something like belonging. That was the pain no doctor could fix, so they gave him other things. Pills for the physical pain first, then for the nerves, then for sleep, then for the panic when he heard certain car engines or the screech of tires outside his window. Eventually, it wasn't about healing, it was about silence, about turning the volume down on the memories until he couldn't hear himself screaming in them anymore. But silence has a cost, and it's always a memory. The pills dulled the edges, but they dulled him too. He stopped playing music for a year, stopped going out, stopped answering friends' texts. He stopped believing in anything good lasting. Until Kate. The night he saw Kate for the first time was a memory that lived in his mind forever amongst the chaos. He remembered that night like the ache of an old scar, not always visible, but pulsing when the air turned cold. He'd left his parents' flat, not stormed out, not screamed, just walked, quiet, numb. The kind of exit that says I was never really here anyway. The mix of whiskey and pills swam through his bloodstream like static. He wasn't sure what he'd taken, just that it was supposed to help him sleep. But sleep hadn't come, not in weeks. Just the memories, just the silence. So he walked into the night. No coat, just shaking hands and too many regrets. The train station was mostly empty, humming with late night electricity and the scent of metal, piss, and tobacco. One of those places that felt scared when you were young, full of comings and goings, maps to anywhere but home. Now it smelled like goodbye. He didn't buy a ticket. He didn't even look at the board. He just sat on the far bench and let the cold seep in. If I get up when the next train comes, I won't stop. He didn't know what that meant, but he knew how it felt. His hands trembled in his lap, his lips cracked, his heart beat too fast and too slow all at once. And still, no one noticed him. Just a ghost on a bench, waiting for permission to disappear. Excuse me, sir? He turned his head so fast his vision blurred. And there she was, bent slightly, one boot in her hand, the other foot bare against the concrete. Sweaty, wind-blown. Her cheeks were flushed and her hair stuck to her forehead, but those eyes, green, with that strange flick of blue in the center, like a flame trying to hide inside a forest. River blinked. She smiled awkwardly. Sorry, my boots are heavy and this guy, just, could you help? He stared at her stunned. Her voice was different, older, warmer, but the lilt was familiar, the cadence, and those eyes. God. Kate? He croaked. She froze. Her eyebrows shot up, and then she laughed. That laugh, the one that always wrinkled her nose. River? He nodded slowly as if anything faster might break him. They just stared at each other for a moment. The platform faded. The cold forgot how to bite. What are you doing here? She asked, brushing her hair back. You look like you've seen a ghost. I might be one, he murmured. Her face softened. Still dramatic, huh? She handed him the boot without asking again. His fingers moved on instinct, unjamming the zipper like it was the most important thing he'd ever done. They sat near the end of the platform, not touching, not talking much. She pulled out a cigarette and lit it with shaky fingers. Offer him one. He took it, tried to smoke it, lit the wrong end. Kate laughed so hard she choked on her exhale. You absolute idiot. You're still high, aren't you? River winced. A little. She gently turned the cigarette around in his fingers. There. Now don't die, yeah? He looked at her. She was older than when he'd last seen her. Not old, just grown. The roundness in her cheeks had faded, but her eyes were still fire. She looked stronger, realer, like someone who had walked through storms and learned to dance in them. He was embarrassed by the state of himself, the trembling, the stubble, the faint smell of sweat and shame on his hoodie. But she didn't flinch. She started, then paused. I had a guy following me for a few stops, gave me a weird feeling. So I got off here. Was trying to make it look like I had somewhere to be. You picked the wrong guy to protect you, River muttered, puffing sideways. She tilted her head. I don't know. You fixed the zipper, and you haven't stopped looking at me like I'm real. He swallowed. You are real. Yeah, she whispered. So are you. The cigarette burned down. The silence stretched. Kate finally asked the question he'd been dreading. So why are you here, River? He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed, lied, just needed air. Things at home are tense. Kate studied him, not buying it, not pressing. He added, guess I was running again. Still trying to outrun your ghosts? She asked softly. Don't outrun them, he said, eyes on the tracks. Just trying to convince them I'm not worth haunting. Kate leaned back and looked at the sky. I used to wonder if you were okay after you moved. I cried so hard that last day, remember? He nodded. I thought I'd never see you again, she said. And then, here you are, looking like hell, but still alive. He closed his eyes, barely. She reached over, touched his knee. He flinched, not from her, but from himself. River, she said gently, whatever storm you're in right now, I'm glad you didn't get on that train. He blinked at her, then nodded once. You saved me. She smiled, confused. From the guy following me? No, he whispered. From myself. They stayed another hour, talking about nothing and everything, childhood, teachers they hated, old music. She had a job now, part-time, volunteered on weekends. She lived not far from here. He couldn't believe the timing, the odds. that this was how the universe decided to tether him back to Earth, with a girl from his past and a broken boot. At one point, she leaned her head against his shoulder. Just for a second. He didn't breathe. River, she said as the next train approached, don't disappear again, okay? He didn't answer with words. He took another drag from the cigarette and exhaled slowly. It was the clearest his mind had felt in years. And even as the train doors opened and she stepped inside, waving through the glass, he knew something had changed. He hadn't died that night. He just started learning to live again. Because of her. The train was already pulling away by the time River stepped back from the platform. Kate had been quiet when she boarded. No tears, no last-minute pleas. Just a long look, something searching and sad behind her eyes. She knew he wasn't coming with her, not really. He stayed until the train was nothing but a sliver of motion in the distance, until the platform emptied and he was alone with the sharp cold of a Belgian morning pressing against his rib. He lit a cigarette, let it hang from his lips without really smoking it. He wasn't high, not this morning, not yet, but the craving whispered around the edges of him, like an old lover at the door. God, he was tired. Tired of waking up wired and pretending he wasn't. Tired of his own excuses. Tired of everyone pretending not to notice. Belgium had once been his hiding place. Now, it felt like quicksand. Too many people knew him here. Too many friends with long memories and loose boundaries. Too many dealers who never asked questions. Too many bars that didn't close. He couldn't turn a corner without bumping into someone who knew exactly how far he'd fallen and didn't care. He couldn't get clean here. And if he stayed, he wouldn't even try. He took a long drag and let the smoke burn his lungs, then stubbed it out against the bench, disgusted with the taste. America. It hit him like a weight, not a fantasy, not a dream, just a direction, a place big enough to disappear, to detox, to start over. He didn't love America. He barely even liked it. But it had distance, oceans of it, and anonymity. Nobody there cared about who he'd been in Berlin clubs or Paris basements. No one would recognize the guy behind the mask. No one would remember him as anything but a mess with a stage name. That anonymity, it was mercy. He didn't need inspiration. He needed obliteration. A place to burn down whatever was left of the version of himself that couldn't survive without the high. And if Kate came back one day, if she still looked for him, maybe by then he'd be someone worth finding. River pulled out his phone, created a new note, typed, "Find real help, not another spa pretending it's rehab." It was raining, soft, steady, the kind of drizzle that blurred the world just enough to make everything feel unreal. Kate's flat smelled like coffee and cold stone, the kind of old European building where time lived in the walls. She didn't expect him when the buzzer rang, but she knew it was him. River stood in the doorway holding a chocolate cake, rain dotting his coat, his curls damp and falling into his eyes. He looked tired but not hollow. There was something quieter in him now, finished maybe. It was 2 days after the train station, and he and Kate were inseparable. "You brought cake?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe, a hint of surprise in her voice. He shrugged. Didn't know what else to bring. Kate stepped aside, letting him in. The cake was from a patisserie she loved. He remembered. He always remembered the soft detail. He set the box on her kitchen table like it was an offering. They didn't touch it. For a long time they just stood there, River leaning against the sink, Kate by the window. The silence between them stretched, but not broken. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft against the glass. Finally, River spoke. "I'm leaving. For America." Kate didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the mug in her hands. "When?" "Tomorrow morning." She nodded once, a small, almost imperceptible movement, then looked away.
"How long?"
"I don't know." He meant it. She stared out the window again, jaw tight, eyes glassy but dry. She didn't ask him to stay. She didn't say, "Please don't go," even though it sat like a scream in her throat. And he didn't ask her to come with him, even though the thought had wrapped itself around his ribs since the moment he bought the ticket. Neither of them said what they needed. Maybe because they already knew the answer. Some love stories weren't meant to be lived in full. Just tasted, remembered. He stepped forward, gently touched her hand where it rested on the table. She didn't flinch. "Thank you," he said. For what? She wasn't sure. For being there. For seeing him. For loving the wreck he'd been without trying to fix it. "Don't forget who you are over there," she said quietly. He smiled, soft and sad. That's sort of the point. When he left, she didn't follow him to the door. He didn't look back. And that was the last time they saw each other. until that blind date years later, still haunted by the same cake left uneaten on a kitchen table in the rain. Code Blue, Pediatric, Room 411. The words cut through the hospital like a knife. River just moved, instantly terminating his memories to be here. The hallway stretched in front of him like a tunnel, his shoes thudding against linoleum, coats flaring behind him like a parachute. Adrenaline overrode exhaustion, instinct overrode fear. He pushed through the door and froze. The boy on the table had Liam's hair. Not exactly, but enough. Brown curls, pale skin, limp arms. The monitor screamed. "Vitals dropping," someone called out. The mother sobbed in the corner, clutching a stuffed bear. A nurse thrust a crash cart toward him. River's hands hovered. For half a second he was 15 again, watching his own chest rise and fall in an ER mirror. Blood crusted to his lip. Vera weeping outside the glass. Doctors whispering trauma protocol over his body like it was no longer his. "Dr. H," another voice shouted. He blinked hard. "Start compressions," he commanded. His gloves snapped on. His hands met the boy's chest. 1, 2, 3. Count. Don't think. Don't see your face on this table. Just count. The boy survived. That's what they told him. Pulse stabilized. Oxygen held. Stabilized enough for PICU. River stood in the staff locker room, still wearing his coat. Still wearing gloves. His hands shook as he peeled them off. He hadn't spoken since the code ended. He sat on the bench staring at his reflection in the small mirror above the sink. Dark circles, hair curling at the edges of his face, sweat dampened. His name badge looked crooked, or maybe he was crooked, off-kilter, misaligned. His stomach churned. He couldn't remember the last time he ate. Everything hurts. Muscles, ribs, brain. He checked his phone. 2 messages from Ireland. He didn't open them. He already knew the flavor of venom and vultures. Outside, the air was cool and damp, biting into his skin like it wanted him to feel something. He walked to the hollow lantern like a ghost on autopilot. His breath came shallow, heart still jittery. As he opened the pub door, the warmth hit him in waves, laughter, music, something acoustic, raw. He felt out of place, like grief in a wedding photo. "Water?" Dana asked, nodding toward him from behind the bar. River gave her a thumbs up. "You look like hell." "Thanks," he rasped. He took the glass and slid onto the corner stool, his usual seat. From here he could see the stage, the door, and the window. Control. Familiarity. He checked his phone. 3 new texts now. One was a photo. He tapped it open without thinking. It felt like being punched. Kate. And Ireland, in the same frame, laughing. Drinks in hand, shoulders touching. No caption, no explanation, just the image. His breath hitched. He dropped the phone like it burned. "Hey," Dana said, voice low, "what's wrong?" River shook his head. It's nothing, just old ghosts. Want to talk about it?" He didn't answer. Because suddenly, he couldn't. His chest felt tight, not just emotional, physical. Pressure bloomed beneath his sternum. At first he thought it was just stress, panic. He closed his eyes, tried to breathe. In, out, but the pain didn't fade. It spread. Across his chest, down his left arm. His fingers tingled. No, not now. Not here. He gripped the edge of the bar, tried to sit up straighter. His vision blurred around the edges. People's faces smudged like wet ink. "Hey," Dana said, stepping around the bar. "You're sweating like crazy. Are you okay?" "Panic attack," he whispered. "It's just panic. Are you sure?" "No," he breathed, because he wasn't, not anymore. He was a doctor. He knew the signs. Chest pain radiating to the arm. Shortness of breath. Cold sweats. Nausea. He ticked them like a chart in his head. STEMI, acute MI, left-sided involvement. He was having a heart attack. 29 years old, sitting in a pub, his mind scrambled. He needed help. But not just help, he needed her. He fumbled for his phone. The screen swam. Ireland's message blinked into view. TikTok. Should I send the clip of Kate crying to her boyfriend next, or to her kids? River's breath caught. He opened the dial pad, searched for one name, Kate. Hit call. It rang, once, twice, 3 times. He was sweating through his shirt now, vision darkening at the corners. "Please, pick up, please." 4 rings, 5, then her voice. "Hi, it's Kate. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Beep. He opened his mouth, tried to speak. The words came broken. "Kate, I'm sorry. I think something's wrong. I didn't mean for any of this. You were right. I'm not okay. But I didn't lie. I swear I didn't." His voice caught. A noise escaped him. Half laugh, half cry. "Please don't hate me. I didn't want to die before I told you. His chest seized. The phone slipped from his hand. The screen cracked on the floor. And the last thing he saw before everything went black was a flash of red notification from Ireland. Nothingness. No sound. No pain. Just dark. River! Dana's voice cracked through the pub. He was on the floor, twitching, pale as bone. Someone call an ambulance, she screamed, kneeling beside him. He was still breathing. Barely. His eyes fluttered, hands curled against his chest like he was cradling something broken inside himself. Stay with me, Dana begged, pressing her hands to his chest, trying to find a rhythm. She didn't know what she was doing, not really, but she'd watched enough ER reruns to fake it until the paramedics arrived. He made a sound, like a word cut in half. Kate, he rasped. Dana swallowed a sob. She's not here, but I am. Don't you dare die on my floor, you dramatic little shit. He wasn't hearing her. His eyes rolled back, and he was gone. It was warm. That was the first thing he noticed. Not burning, not blinding, just gentle, like a whisper made of light. He was lying in a bed with white sheets, tangled in someone else's limbs. A hand rested on his chest, rising and falling with his breath. Hair tickled his lips, gold and wild, fanned across his collarbone like a crown of sunlight. Kate! He didn't dare move, just breathed her in, lavender and rain. Her bare shoulder peeked through the sheets. Her breath was slow, steady. He felt tears forming, but they didn't fall. Not yet. So this is it, he thought. This is death. It wasn't fire or nothingness. It was her. The version of her that had forgiven him. The version that believed him. The version that never left the train platform. He pressed his lips to her hair and whispered, "Thank you." And then the light faded,